why we are learning what we are learning. And I keep doing this every other week because next week you are going to be looking at deep learning, right, AIML stuff, and then after that you'll have my session. So I want you all to get the perspective correct, okay, the priority, perspective, everything correct. So why are we learning web development? We are learning web dev, we are learning what we are learning because any kind of application that you build, whether it's a blockchain based application, whether it is an AIML application, whether it is even the IoT applications, the sensors and all that, people need to see a UI to work on it, right? Unless you are building an application for for somebody who's very good at the technical stuff, like for your peers, if you are building an application, then you're building it for computer science engineers, and you would want to build a script that you could run at command prompt. Then you don't need a web interface at all, right? So then what would you need? You just give them some script and say, take this and run it at the command prompt. It will work for you. A Python file, a JS file, right? But otherwise, everybody understanding what I'm trying to say? What I'm trying to say here is, I'm trying to bring you to understand the importance of web dev. We've already done that, but while we are waiting for everybody to join in, I thought I'll just take a quick minute to explain the need for web dev again. So the need is come what might, whatever application you want to build, whatever type of application that you want to build, if you want the regular end users, the regular customers, the regular people, non-tech savvy, not even tech savvy, people who are not good with coding or people who do not understand, you want to sell the application to the regular crowd, to the billions of population that's out there, you need a web interface. For building a web interface, you need to have a front end, a UI, where they can type up, where they can enter information or browse or do whatever they wish to, right? And you need somewhere where you want to store the data. You need something in the middle that talks and brings the data to the front end. You see what I'm saying? So for this whole reason, we are learning FSD, full stack development. Now, we start with web dev, but sooner in the next year or the next semester, for the next year or the next semester, in the next year or the next semester, you will be looking at building mobile applications, right? So this is just a beginning, okay? So now let's start. We learned HTML, we learned CSS, then we learned, what did we learn after CSS? Bootstrap. We learned Bootstrap. Then there are other things like Tailwind and others that you can use, right? JavaScript. We said we need some activity. We need the page to come live, and we need the page to be a little more brainy and not just display static pages. So we said we'll add some logic and we'll use JavaScript for that. From JavaScript, we started learning how JavaScript grew and how ES6 came into existence, and how JavaScript, which initially used just to make the pages a little active, is now also used on the server side. We looked at Node.js, we understood how Node.js is a JavaScript runtime environment outside the browser. We looked at all that, right? Now, once we started learning what Node.js is, we started to understand that Node.js is an ocean, right? So what we are going to do next is, first, we'll wrap up the assignment. So I'm going to give you 15 minutes or maybe 10 minutes. Let's see how the submissions are, and we'll wrap up complete the assignment, and then we'll move on to Node.js PPT, okay? The agenda for today, first thing, complete the Node.js assignment that we started in the last class. Second thing, go over the Node.js PPT that we have so that the concepts of Node.js stay intact with you or stay concrete in your mind. Then third, we look at Express.js. Like I mentioned, we'll start with Express.js. Why do we have to learn Express? What is Express.js? Why, what, and how, right? We'll do all that. We'll have a very small exercise just to show how Express.js is running. So it's a very simple one. We'll open that up towards the end of the session. I repeat, first thing, we are going to complete or wrap up our application or assignment, right? We'll submit that, we'll finish it, because the assignment that I gave in the last session cannot run on its own. I gave you a piece of some part of code already, and I told you to build the rest of it. Apart from that, you will need a little help of mine in figuring out something. So I'm going to help you with that as well. And then you'll submit the assignment. Once the assignment is submitted, we'll go back to our PPT and go over Node real quick, the slides. Once that is done, we'll start working on Express.js. Everybody clear? So far so good? Yes? Okay. I'd like you all to focus, please. The more deeper we get into this part, the more you need to focus. Please learn to focus and focus on what is being taught. If you have any questions, you can check with your neighbors, but keep it as less as possible. Okay, here we go. So where are we now? In the last session, I said, let's start Node.js. I told you how we can use Node.js to fetch files, right? I told you to fetch an index.html and to fetch a products.html. I gave you a products.json file and I said, get data from that JSON file and display. Reading from a JSON file and populating a table, you have learned it during your HTML and JavaScript days itself, right? That was easy. You just read from JSON and then you just iterate through and add the TRs for each. TR meaning table row. TD for each column, and you put that inside a map, and automatically or dynamically your table gets created. But here, right? But here the products.json and the HTML are together, that is right, but you are not only supposed to fetch the products.html file, but also supposed to fetch the products.json. I have a feeling, see, everything, guys, everything that you work on going forward, there are multiple ways of doing it, right? There is no one correct way. If there is only one correct way, then there is something wrong there. There are multiple ways of performing the same operation. Some very easy, some a little complicated, some following the rules, some do not follow, some that do not follow the rules, right? So the one that I'm going to show here, right, this assignment was to fetch index.html when you say /home, and when you say /products, supposed to fetch products from product list. Now the code that I gave you was this, right? An index.html, if I remember right, I gave the zip file that contained index.html, right, and products, like that. I said, add code to fetch the products.json directly and populate the table. This was what you were supposed to do. If you remember right, from the beginning I have been saying that ID attribute is very important. ID is what ties JavaScript with HTML. So here I gave an ID for a T body called product table. You are supposed to get this document, get this element by saying document.getElement by ID and add TR, right? That is what you're supposed to do. But you're supposed to get from products.json the actual list. Now what does this products.json contain? It's an array. Listening? It's an array. So you're supposed to get this and display, right? That was the thing. Now even before we go and start looking at it, I'd like you all to quickly go over with me this file. So you don't feel like there is some code and we are running but we don't know what it is. You all know HTTP is an inbuilt module that I can use, right? Whenever I want to create a server, right, a server running at this particular port and whatever, I use the HTTP module there. I use that module and call create server on that. What does create server take? It takes request and response. Like I said, across web development, pick any language, pick any medium, anything. There's always a client that is sending a request. There is always a server that is sending a response, right? Very much like a restaurant. Now don't say we have buffet in restaurant, okay? So what I'm trying to say is there is a server, you place an order, that server comes back with your order. Similarly here too, we have a server, and I don't think people use server language these days in restaurants, do they? Anyway, so request, response. So you are checking the URL of the request in the location bar, seeing if it has a /home, if it has /home or just /. You see, you are taking care of two paths here, both / and /home. Then you serve index.html. But how does my Node.js know how to read index.html? So it needs a file system module, right? Like any other language, guys, in Java or Python, anywhere, you need a module or a library to help you read the files, right? So I get that FS, file system. I do a read file on this, right? But how do I read file? One of the very common mistakes that I've noticed beginners do is they keep the complete path. Everybody there listening? Now they may seem very small, but 1 year or 1.5 years from now, when you are facing the interviewer and he says or she says that when I'm reading a file system, why can't I say C:/ users : SIREESHA : then you'll have to think about the answer. Now if you can pay a little more attention now, I think that will be easy for you to answer. What we are building now is a server, right, which is fetching files. Now where does this live? Does this folder live in your computer or in the client's computer? Like let's say I built a account management system. Is it going to live, is this server living on the accountant's computer? Everybody? Kindly focus. So I've created this folder, right? Is this folder going to be on the customer's computer or in the cyber cafe or wherever they are trying to access it? No. Is this going to live in your computer, laptop, so they can access it somewhere? No. Where is this code going to go? It needs to be deployed on a server like GoDaddy, right? Deployed meaning you take this code and put it there, and from there, right, you understand how internet works. In the initial days I sent you a link. From there, there will be from there people will try to access. There is a whole thing about DNS name, domain naming service, and then the IP address and all. But that static IP is available throughout the world. So your code is going to go there and they are going to access that. Now in your code, if you write C drive and whatever, on GoDaddy server, is it going to go to C drive? No. Remember guys, in web development, there is no space or place for absolute path. No. It's always relative. And where is the relative path begin? Where does it begin? From the root folder of your project. So if you have created day 17, inside that if you have package.json, that becomes your root folder. Okay? If you are in day 19, that becomes. So it's always going to be / from there on, not C users and all. So in web dev, never use absolute path. Now here, right, it is getting the current directory name because I'm trying to join, getting the path, the complete thing, and then index.html. I'm concatenating that, right? Simple file system for now. And then I'm checking. You see this, everyone? Any time that you read a file, the second parameter is your callback. These callbacks are pretty common. By now you must have known. So I have an error and I have content. If error occurs, it's going to come here. If it was able to read, fine, right? If error or content, it's going to enter this in any case. So basically this returns two things, error in case of an error and content if it was able to read the file. Now once that is done, here I come and check. Is there an error? Then throw error, meaning come out of it. It will throw error and leave everything else. If not, now remember everyone, this error is not because of some error inside the file. The error occurs when the system is not able to read the file itself, right? So if there's a problem, then you throw the error, whatever error it is. I'm keeping it very simple, throwing it as is. Ideally, I would have a try catch and all that. So otherwise, like I said earlier, any language, whether it is PHP, JSP, or you write servlets, anywhere, you get a request, the server should send a response. Response will have what? A status and a head in which you will mention what type of response you are sending, right? Remember when you send a Swiggy package, like I told you, you send a parcel, Uber parcel, Swiggy, Genie or something like that. I can go on with different applications like that, but basically you wrap it up and say this is what it is inside to whoever you are sending, right? Or you call and tell. So here you write head. The first thing is the status. Everyone, please make a note of what all response has. RES is response, right? What does this response have? It's the same thing that we have used here. If I say response here, I should choose response, right? Parameter, same name. Now, What are the methods in a HTTP response object? Please make a note and read it later. To the response I am writing 200 and then mentioning the content type as HTML. I am sending you text, please convert into HTML and display. So index.html will be displayed as HTML. If I am sending a JSON file, then I will say text/JSON. So if somebody asks you, can you give me some of the few of the methods in response, or what do you send along with the response, you say you first set the head. In that head you give the status code 200, 401, 501, all that. Then if for 200, in case of 200, I can either send the data that I have read from this, or I can send JSON file or JSON data or plain text data or a HTML file, right? So that's what I've done here. Now here, this is products.html. I've just begun writing it. This is the else part, right? Sorry, not products. This is the else part, meaning if it is neither home nor / nor products, then it will come here. But here we are supposed to write the product, right? Else if, right? We write that. And here is where I want you to focus. Here you must be thinking, ma'am asked, or in the assignment it is said that if I say forward products, everybody to the screen please, forward products, you should display products, right? So what do? I'll copy this code here, right? Control V and say products and say products.html, right? But what does my products.html have? It is plain file, okay? Shall I add that and show products.html? Here directory name, I just want to say products.html. Everybody clear? I'm giving away part of the code. So basically if it is products, now I don't want to take care of the / because this is not home page, right? So exactly same, I'll say products and say display products.html. As simple as that, right? Now how am I going to execute this? Because we have very less space in the window, because I keep zooming in, I'd like to go back to, I think this is day 14, right? And how do you check where your folder is? You right click here and say reveal in Explorer. It's important to know VS Code shortcuts, please. Now here is where my index and products and everything is, right? Our own server is what I gave it. So I'll do a CFD, right? Do I have a Node.js or anything like that? No, right? I don't have a package.json. This is not a Node project. So I'll simply say node space. It's a simple JavaScript file. It is saying server is running at localhost 3000, right? Now I go to my browser, go to localhost, say 3000. My hello KMIT is there. This was working from the beginning. Now I'm going to say / products. What did it return? It did return the products file, right? This is expected behavior. But here in products, right, it is bringing in products.html, but the code, I did not add the code yet to read from JSON and print it. How do I read from JSON? What I'm going to do is I'm going to give you another block of code, right, that will help you in reading from JSON. Okay, but you have to use that and work on it, please. Give me 1 minute. I'll share it in today's code. Meanwhile, go ahead and work on it, please. I'll share that piece of code and share that file in today's course material. Meanwhile, please go ahead and get the products working. Today is day 15, so I'm going to create a day 15. Then to that I'm going to add. Okay, meanwhile, please work on the exercise and get where we are. How many of you were able to get the hello KMIT and products.html, the bare minimal one? Can you please raise your hands? You all got it? In the front, there at the last, please. Still working on it. Remember, there was a zip file that I shared in course files last time. Please download that zip file and start working. Again, I'm going to share another block of code. It should see a day 15. So what I'm going to do as a teacher, I'm going to go to course material, pick PS Embedded Learning, pick day 15, say upload material. Here I'm going to say products JSON else if block. Okay. Then from files, I'm just going to choose file. What I've done is I've created a simple text file. In day 15 in class. EPS in class day 15 else if block. I'll explain what that means also. Done. Go back to the course material. Just confirm if you are able to see it, right, after a minute. Can you all confirm and tell me if you are able to see this file? So what I'm going to do, can I have your attention please? Please look at the screen for 1 minute. What I'm doing is I'm giving you the code for server.js. Before products here, add this else if block. Everybody, you have the products.json file. We have seen how to send the response with a text by just saying hello world. We have seen how to send the response with an HTML, index.html. We have seen how to the response back using as a how to send the response by writing HTML code into it, right? Products.html, index.html thus. Now this example is going to write the JSON file, right? Because in products.html you need to fetch the JSON, right? So you could do that. This will help you in fetching. So just do a fetch on once you have this code in your / projects here, right? You just fetch it and display. Okay, let me not show that yet. This part, copy over this part. This will help you in fetching the products.json. In product.html, you have to write code to read from it. I repeat, the code that I have shared with you is this one. Add it as an else if block to your server.js before products. What are we doing here? Everybody, we are trying to see how to read a JSON file. Very soon you will be reading from Atlas or MongoDB, but before that, you see that there? So in the URL, if it says products.json, then it is going to come here, look for the products.json file, read the file path, and then write the complete content and send it back. Not as a JSON, but as a plain file. Again, I'm sure there are a few of you here who have figured out a way of how to get that products.json information into your products.html and read it. If you have done that and if you are able to see that table with products, that is fine. There's no problem. If you are able to see the products.html without this help of this one, that is fine as well. Please don't modify your code. But for the others who have not figured out how to do that, this is an example. This will be a thumb rule or a go-to page for you to understand how to return HTML files, how to return a JS file, JSON data, how to, if none of these is there in the path, like / I'll just say KMIT or / SIREESHA. So there is no route for that. We did not add that, right? Then it is going to come to the error block. There are many ways of handling it. Not found. You see that? 404 not found. You go to many websites where you put a / and there's some mistake there or the link is broken. This is what you get, right? So for now, the code that I shared in the course material, please carefully copy that after line 15 like that and paste it there, right? Once you have done this, what should you do now? Should simply go to your products.html file. Here, do a fetch, get it, display. How will you fetch it? Do you need me to write a pseudocode? I think I'm giving away the assignment. Any case, fetch, right? I'll give you a very basic one, right? So fetch that. Let me put it like that. It is not this. You'll have to put the complete IP address here, /products.json, and you know how fetch works, right? I'll leave it to you to figure out. Fetch it from there. So now what happens if you have products.json? It's going to go to server.js, look for products.json route, get everything, and return. Right on the head, return. Oh, sorry. JSON file. If it works fine, I'm sorry. Earlier I said plain. I too was surprised a little bit, but if there is an error reading the file, then that. If not, write in JSON format and send it to it. So in products.html, I'll fetch that route and display. Okay? Use a fetch here in the script tag. Shall I give 5 minutes? Let me give you 5 minutes to figure that out. Okay? So basically, everybody, this is done. This is done. You don't have to do this. This is what this is. You're getting product.html only, right? The code is written already, same thing. The only thing that you have to do now is in products.html, call a fetch and get done with it. Okay? The product table ID is also there. Use that ID and then work on it. 5 minutes. Let me start the timer. I might have to freeze the screen. In any case, is anybody who tried to submit? Day 14, right? Node.js server. Hold on, everybody. Today's is need not be displayed. So remember, day 14 is what you have to work on, please, not the copy one. Lakshmi, they are all these have already submitted it. So when say 3000, it is working fine. Products, there. Oh, take care of this, please. To locale string and all. Price should be displayed as price. You just have your parenthesis and this wrong. Please check. Very good. I'm happy that there are quite a few who have already submitted it. Make sure you did not submit localhost. This must be because you have submitted it last time around. Get your fresh IP and check. 5 minutes on it. Okay? How many of you got it working now? One of your friends brought it up. So I was trying to troubleshoot and I realized that's what it is. 48 stars, green stars, that's nice. Rest of you? How many need a little more time? Can you raise your hand if you need more time? Okay, some more time? I understand. Shall I give you 5 more minutes? Okay. I'll give you 5 more minutes. Meanwhile, the rest of you, go over the URLs that I shared in the WhatsApp group earlier. See if that makes sense, the dev dependencies and production dependencies and all that. Let me give you 4 more minutes. All those who did not get it, test cases pass, remove the / after 3000 for checking, please. Go over a little bit of Express.js for me, please. All those who have completed working on the assignment. All right, let's move ahead. Let me just check how many have submitted. The others can meet me towards the end to see what the problem is, to get help. Okay, see 86 stars and rest of them are working. Hold on please, you might figure it out in some time. If not, you can check with me later. Let's move on. Now I have a few questions before we move on. I have a Node.js project, right? I built a nice little application in my computer. Can I have your complete attention, please? Node.js project I have running in my computer. I want to share it with you. Let's say I want to upload it into the course files. What is that I should include in my zip file, and what is that it should not include in my zip file? Who can tell me, when I'm zipping up a Node.js project, compressing and sharing it with you, what folder or what file should I not include? Very good. Node_modules. That should not be included because those are the libraries. So whoever is exporting or whoever is getting that project to get up and running, they will get those node modules. Done? Now, I shared it with you, right? I shared my zip file with you. It has all the HTML files, JavaScript files, CSS files, and what file should it have? Package.json. Very good. So we should have package because that is a configuration file. Now that I have the zip file downloaded on my computer, or you have the zip file downloaded on your computer, you'll extract it. You'll get the folder structure with all of them. Now how do I execute it? Node space I. Very good. So you go to that folder, wherever you have extracted, make sure you are only in package.json, please. Many a times people tend to go to one folder above or go into the src folder. Don't do that. Go into the folder where you have your package.json, go there and say npm I, not node, npm space I. So the Ramu Kaka or your package manager is going to go. Where will the package manager go? It will go to the package.json. Good. And in that package.json, where exactly? Where? Dependencies. Very good. So it goes to dependencies, checks what are the dependencies for your project, creates a node_modules folder, installs everything. So clearly you need internet for this, right? When you are doing an npm space I in the folder, for it to fetch all the libraries and store them in your node modules folder, it needs internet. So that is going to happen. Now here is one very interesting and important question that most interviewers tend to ask. Can you give me an example of what are dev dependencies? I already shared a URL. All those who have read it might already understand. There are two main dependencies in a node project: production dependencies or live, and dev dependencies. We don't say production dependencies, we call them just dependencies. And then there is dev dependencies section. If you go out to check in package.json, for now you will see only dependencies, all the libraries that are needed. I'll show how it works. Earlier also I showed you, when you install something with npm I, that gets written in that package.json, right? Package.json is like your Chitragupta, going to write everything, whatever your project needs, right? So in that package.json, in the dependencies, you will have everything that your project requires. Let's say you need an algorithm generator. Let's say you need a logarithmic calculator. All those packages that you've installed. But one important thing that you all must know is there is a section called dev dependencies also. Now, why do you think the development, while you're working on a project, why would you need any library at all? No, we need some library while developing. Can you give me an example of what you would like to have when you're working on a node project? NodeMon, very good. NodeMon is node monitoring service. Meaning if I make any change in the code, I want the server to automatically restart the index.js. For that I need a package called NodeMon. But when I'm putting it on GoDaddy or somewhere, I'm not developing on GoDaddy. So I don't need it there, right? So locally I need only only while developing. So NodeMon is one very good example of dev dependency. Another example is when you want to test something, right? Jest, J-E-S-T, make a note and look it up. That is one package that you might need for testing. Then, have you heard about Prettier? How many here have heard about Prettier? Wow, that's a good number. So what does it do? Makes your code pretty. Do you need that on the live server? When you're deployed already, you're not writing code there. So that you need for your development. That's a node module. Then there's ESLint. Some do not use VS Code, they need ESLint. So then they will install that, right? Testing, making your code pretty. Then Webpack, to package your code. Minimize remove all the unnecessary files. Webpack, that is also needed only on the development side. So these are all your dev dependencies. Please understand the difference between how you install them? Do you install them with npm I? Yes, but then at the end you say -dev, right? When you say dev, you'll see that particular modules, the Chitragupta has entered that in the dev dependency section and not in the main dependency section. Okay. Now let's move on, please. So let's go real quick with the advantages, right? I did not know you guys like the PPTs so much. Everybody is looking at the screen and all right, good. So let's move on. So advantages, we know asynchronous advantages of Node.js, please. We are now wrapping up Node.js real quick. Single threaded event loop, we know that. JavaScript on the server, we know that. We just saw it fetching files. Ecosystem is huge. The NPM, if you go there, there are zillions of packages that people have created. Fast execution powered by the V8 engine, right? Do you all know where else do we use V for engines? Where? V6, P11 or in cars we use that, right? V6 engine and all. Anyway, so V8, lightweight by design, scalable. Now this is an interesting question. Please make a note. What is horizontal scaling? What is vertical scaling? Another interview question that people tend to understand, people tend to ask to see how much you know. Do you just know coding or do you know the bigger picture also, right? Can you add basically horizontal scaling means when you are adding like that. Vertical is like that. You must be thinking, will we put one CPU about the other? No, right? That is too silly. I'm sure you are not also thinking like that. Basically, how are you adding the how to say processors, or how are you making the server? How are you bulking up the server? Are there 14 servers connected to each other, horizontal scaling? Are you just adding RAM after RAM after RAM on the same thing? So in this, horizontal scaling is possible. You can distribute, right? Please research and learn. Then real-time data intensive applications. For all these, remember, thumb rule, Node.js for data intensive applications. Not Node.js for, when do you not use Node.js? Process intensive, right? Like I told you, at a restaurant, the server or the waiter has to pour, has to make the salad in front of you, mix all that. No. Gourmet, no. You want things done quickly? Go for Node.js, right? Then let us see how to build a project. Everybody to the screen, please. So you have Node. You see that there? NPM. Everything, React.js, everything, whatever you want to install, you install using NPM. At the core is your Node.js. At the bottom, on that Node.js platform, you build your My project. In that My project, you use NPM to install libraries, right? Like that. NPM install cake mix, you know, very simple examples, but NPM install cupcake pan. So you're installing all the modules that you require to make the cake, right? So cake mix and it's just an example to tell you all the ingredients are already there. All the things that you need are already there. You just have to install and start making. I'll share this file so you don't have to worry. There, npm init. We all know what npm init does. We don't do npm init anymore. We just do npm I, right? So that will start a Node project. What is the one thing that you'll have to be doubly sure, triply sure? Make sure the entry point. If you are creating a backend, there are no web pages as such, which we are going to do next. Then index.js is fine. But if you are using Node as a front-end server where it is supposed to fetch files and all, like we just did, then you make sure the entry point is index.html, right? You see bugs and home page at the bottom, GitHub homepage and repositories and scripts, all that is there. This is what I was saying. Now the reason why I leave this comment there where we say --save. Few years ago when I first started teaching Node, that version of Node was 14. In that version and before that, we had to mention --save to make sure that that entry is made into the dependency section. But nowadays, you don't have to mention, just say npm I express, npm I calc, npm I light server. Automatically it gets into the dependencies, meaning live dependencies or production dependencies, right? This is what we used to do for dev. --save, -dev would make it add to the dev dependencies. Mocha, Gulp, there are many other things that are needed for certain particular applications, please, to build. So for that, it is for building, for development you need it. That's why we have it in dev dependencies. Okay, you must be thinking she's missing a ship there. There should be a Titanic whenever there's a glacier, right? Not really. What I'm trying to get at is Node looks like that at the top. But when you go and look at node modules folder, all your project dependencies are way more. Right? You will see it will go into MB also sometimes. Because one dependency requires another dependency that will be installed, then again other dependency. In most cases, the issues with Node.js projects or the problems are also because the dependencies are not matching, right? Two dependencies might be using the same with a different version. We'll come to that in some time. I don't want to give you too much detail and take you off track. All our projects dependencies like that, you see 16 MB in 180 modules. And those are the dependencies. Moment and Mocha. Those are the only two things that I added, and look at the number of modules that got installed. Right? And the other interview question, should we only use Ramu Kaka, NPM to install stuff, or can you ask your butler or somebody? Yarn. So YAR and Yarn is also another way of installing node modules. Right? So this is what we have seen already, creating the server. Status code 200, you know what that is, right? Create server and make sure you listen. At the bottom, if you just say listen and port, it will just listen there with a cursor. You will not actually see any message. So it's always a good practice to say server is running at so and so port. Done? All the modules, we have seen we used light server. I showed how to have an index page and all. Right? Initialize the node project, npm init. Create the index.html, the same thing that we did the other day. Enter all the values and press enter. You will see a package.json file is created. There like that. Done. We'll install light server now. How do we do that? npm I, light-server at the top of the page. You can ignore the --save and -dev part. Gets installed. Now how do we start? Another important thing. The interviewer or somebody who's talking to you might ask you, not only do I want to start the server, but I want to take care of something else. Every time I do not want to go and say node. I have multiple scripts that I have to run, pushing the code to Git, or there are many other things that I want to do. So basically the interviewer wants to know, how do I write certain scripts that I want to run at the command prompt for that project using npm? How do I write them? So what do? You say, you go to the script section of your package.json there and mention, like here I said start light server. You can say in the next line, my own script, colon, or let's say save it to drive, colon. Give any name to the script. Left side is the name that you have to put at the command prompt after npm, and right side is what script you want to run. Done? Everybody understood what I'm trying to say? Make a note please. We can't go over it for 5 to 10 minutes. We don't have that kind of time. So I'll just tell you, any script that you want to run on your project, you can come here, give the command on the left and mention the script on the right side. So it will execute that script. And how do you run it? You go to command prompt for that project, say npm space and whatever you have given there. Like in this case I said start, right? In some cases you see npm run dev, many things. So we start the server, we get that. Here is an example where I used the weather application. I got a node project running on weather, server side scripting, that is all, right? So this is a node for you. I'll also give you the text file in the WhatsApp where you will know the important concepts in node that you have to understand and learn. Okay. Now let's move on and let's go over the next thing. What is the next thing? Express.js. Everybody, this completes the main area of the front end. There is React.js which will come if time permits towards the end of this whole course. We'll have React.js. But before that, while we are at Node, I'd like you all to understand Express.js. Express.js is also a Node module. It's a very lightweight Node module. How does it help us? For you to talk to the database, right? You can write the code inside your JS files, but it's always a good practice, and our whole thing depends on stack, right? So front end, back end, and middleware. This middleware, Express.js is very good at, right? Express.js gives us some very good endpoints that we can use and go ahead. Now, can you all tell me, if I have a website and I'm browsing through, what is the first thing that I'm asked to do anytime I access something? People ask you to log in, very good. But for login, can you log in directly? What should you do before you log in? Enter data or register first. It's not tessellator where the data is already there, not too fun, right? So register. So your website is expected to store information in the database. Your website is expected to retrieve information from the database. And if you go to your profile page and you modify something, your website is expected to modify data and in very rare cases, delete some data also. You want to remove some phone number, you want to remove your credit card information, right? So, what are all these things? These are all called, these things that you are performing, everybody, are the endpoints of your front end. Front end is going to go to that far, right? Let me go back to my restaurant example. I enter a restaurant. In most cases, you go sit, but in some restaurants, there is a person standing there asking you how many people are there, which table do you want to go to, right? Then they'll take you to that table and you sit. Similarly, in the front end, it's a very lame example, but still, I'm trying my best to stick to the restaurant part. Not to make you guys hungry, but you get the idea. So, in same case, with your front end, you built the website, you did everything. Now you want to register, store something in the database. You give the responsibility to Express.js. Tell Express.js, boss Express.js, can you get this information for me? So there is one get. Then you tell Express.js, boss, I want to register. This person wants to register. Here is the information of this person. I want you to store this. So you want to store. You want to put some data into the database. Express.js again. Then you want to update. So basically all these are called the endpoints. Okay. Another very nice and beautiful word or abbreviation is API. Application Programmer Interface. It's an interface between the application and the program. So application programming interface, sorry. So what do you have now? API, right? So Express.js helps you build this API. I repeat, the reason why I'm repeating is, if somebody asks you, you should not have to stutter, you should not have to think through, it should come like that to you. Whenever somebody says, why do you need Express.js? You say it's a lightweight, Node.js, some people say it's a framework, some people say it's a library that helps us create middleware, that helps us create endpoints, right? So that we can talk to the backend, to the database easily, right? Express.js again uses another library called Mongoose or Mongo client or many things that it uses, but basically it acts as a very good person. It acts as a very good interface between the front end and the database. Now let's see how we can do that. Again, remember please, Express.js is also a Node.js package. So you create a, how many of you here have already started working on the backend? Please raise your hand. Backend for your PS project. Many of you have started, right? So in the front end, you might be using React.js. Can I know how many are using Vite, V-I-T-E for front end? Very good. So you're using front end for Vite. You can use React for Vite, React.js, CRA for Vite, I'm sorry. So CRA or Vite, up to you what you want to use. Middleware, you'll be using Express.js to talk to your database, right? Now let's start building that real quick. So first and foremost, I'm going to go to my day 15 folder, right? I'm going to create, if you want you can work along with me or you can wait. Going to create a folder, I'll call it Express Backend, right? Like I said, this is a node project that I'm building, right? So what do? I do a, so why don't I write steps here? I think that will be helpful, right? Create, once I get the spelling right, create folder, Express, what did I have? Backend. One word please, Express Backend. Done? Make sure you do it in day 15 and then go to command prompt, right? Go to command prompt, Control C. That was an old one. Express Backend. How do I start creating my node project? npm I. npm I or npm init? What did it say? npm init? Please remember I for installation. I'm sorry. I for installation and initialization is always init. npm init. Package name, yes, I want it to be Express backend. Version, yes. Description, I'm going to write some few endpoints. Check. Right? Entry dot. Now remember, this is a backend folder. It is not going to give you HTML files. It is just there to take you to the appropriate table based on what you want. 4 people, 6 people. So based on whether it's a put or a get or a delete request, it needs to take you to the appropriate place. So I want a JS file. There's not going to be an HTML file here, please. So I'll leave it as index.js, index.js, command nothing, git repository, keywords. I'll just leave it there. Done. So now I have my package.json. Now that I have my, how many of you know how to open up VS Code from prompt? No? Code space dot. Very good. Code space dot. There. Done. So for that folder, it's going to open up. So here I have. Now what did I say? In package.json I said, boss, you're supposed to open up index.js. So let me go ahead and create index.js. Now what did I say we'll be using? I said we'll be using Express.js, right? So first let me go and update the steps. Create folder and cmd at the folder, right? And then npm init. Press enter for all options because we don't even want to change the entry point. Okay? It should create package.json. Then what should you do? Code space dot at cmd for the same thing. Say code space dot. What should it do? Should open VS Code at this folder. Not at this folder. Should open this folder in VS Code. Let me be clear. Done. Now you have VS Code open in this folder. Check package.json. It's not like something wrong is going to happen, just for the sake of it, right? Whenever you create a project, try to see whatever entry points you have given, is everything working fine. Now how many of you have reached this far? Can you please raise your hand? Shall I give you 1 minute? 2 minutes, anybody? No? No. Okay, let's go ahead then. Check package.json. Once it is done, now create index.js file. What should you do in index.js file? Now let's go. Okay? Let me give you 1 minute with these steps so that everybody is, see, the point is to take everybody with us, please, not just travel alone, right? So let's wait. Again, we are trying to create a backend folder using which we'll be able to write some endpoints. Today's exercise is based on this, but only one endpoint we are going to work on today. So it is going to be super simple. Okay, 9 more seconds. There. Done. Let's go. Now what did I say I needed? I said I'm going to use Express. So let me do that. Let Express equals, I'll do simple require Express. What do you think? Will this work? You think it will work? Okay. Now using Express, I want to create an instance of this Express. Now I've got an Express here. I want to create an instance of it there, right? So let me write get Express, then get an instance of it. On this instance, remember I said using Express you can have different endpoints. Get, post, put, delete, like that there are so many more. So I'm going to say get. If you can hover over it, it will give you some information, but hold on. Okay? I'll say get, and remember When we did routing earlier, it is very similar to that. So I'll say / app.get. So if somebody is requesting something at the root, this is called as a root route. What do I do? What should I be doing? Request comma response, response.send, hello KMIT or hello world, there, done. Where do I want my server to be, where do I want it to listen? I want it to listen at port 5000. Anywhere you look up, people will make your Express server listen at port 3000. Why am I using 5000? Any thoughts? Because React.js and many other applications that you use for front end use 3000. So you don't want to use up that port. So I'm saying 5000 for mine, and I'll here, if I leave it like that, it's just going to blink. So to make it more clear for everybody, here I'm going to say console.log Express backend server is listening or waiting at port 5000. Waiting for what? For requests. This looks pretty simple, right? How many of you think this will work fine? Can you please raise your hands? How many of you think this is going to work fine? None of you? Then what do you think is going to be a problem? You think it's going to work fine? How many of you think it's not going to work fine? Who's that there? There somebody says, how many of you think it's not going to work fine? You think it's not going to work fine. What do you think will happen? Very good. Did we install Express? No. It is not the HTTP or FS that is freely available. We did install. Can anybody guess what kind of the error you are going to get? That would be fun. What? Excellent you guys are. Module not found. Let's see. It will be fun if we get more errors, right? I hope we get many errors. We'll get to troubleshoot. So here I'm going to say, see, I can always say, everybody now here comes the smartness. Not that great, but I'm going to go to my package.json, and here at scripts, remember how we did for live server? I want to add. I want to look cool. So I'll say start and say index.js. So what index.js? Node space index.js. So every time I say npm start, it's going to come. It's going to run this one. So here npm start. Node index Express backend server is listening. How come it is working fine for me? Because I have already installed globally. I'm sorry. So, but for you it will not work. So let me just make sure, like light server. So I'm going to say npm I express. Everybody shift. Okay, let me just copy this over. Okay. Create index.js file, check package.json. So step 8 is at command prompt, what should you do? npm I express, right? Okay, check package.json. Everybody, could you please look at package.json for me in your computer and here? There is scripts, there is author, there is license, right? Now I'm going to go here and say npm I express. Okay? I'm going to resize this window. Keep looking at my package.json. You could also do it from your side. Actually, I'm not connected to internet, right? So it will not work. Let me connect to internet. Let's see if I can get my phone. Heather. Okay. Sorry about that. Okay, there we go. Connect. Make sure you are connected to internet for this, please. Done. Control C, npm I express. For Tufan, we do not usually, we are always connected to our auditorium network. We are not connected to the internet, right? So let's see, keep looking here please, in the script, chapter script section. Right now I don't have any dependencies. Let's see what happens when I install this one. Hopefully it will work a little fast. Now after this, oh, I should have executed that and showed it to you, right? We did not check the error. Everybody? Sorry, let me just delete it once, okay? I'm deleting the node modules. I'm deleting the dependencies there, and now I want to execute it. So I'll do npm start. I want you all to see the error. npm start. Are you able to see it on your side? Module not found. I will not see it. It will start. You are able to see it? Oh, I'm sorry. Now let me go ahead and do what I did earlier. npm I install express. So when I do that in package.json, I'll get the express dependencies like that. Not only that, which package.json am I referring to? 1 minute. Not only that, I'll get the node modules folder created. You see that? Everybody, whenever we do npm init, node modules is not installed. The libraries get installed when you try to install a library. So when you do an npm init or npm I, you see that 13 packages have been installed. I asked it to install node modules. I asked it to install express.js, I'm sorry. Look at how many it installed. Because express.js has these dependencies inside it. You see that? There's a package.json inside it. So it installs everything. Now let's go back. We're already at 54. So express is done. So now when I go and perform npm start, I hope you all read about global and local installations. So backend server is listening at port 5000. So I go here, localhost 5000, hello world, done. Now the interesting thing is, this is just I've written to the response and sent. I'd like you all to install Thunder client. Many of you use Postman. I'd like you all to install Thunder client. Please install Thunder client. Okay, check. Because it is a GET request, it will work fine in browser as well. Remember the port is 5000. Should return what? Should say hello world with 2 exclamations. Now let me go back. This is the code. Did you all get the code? I don't want to share it in the files. It's just few lines of code. How many of you got this far? Can you please raise your hand? All of you here, there. Last 2 quadrants, please. Because of the recording, I can't walk till there, but can you please tell me, did you get it working? How many of you want this code to be shared? Nobody wants it to be shared? You will look at it and type it up? Because this is what the exercise is. I want you all. So I'll just freeze it and open up the exercise. In the exercise, you just have to say hello KMIT instead of hello world. That's the only difference. Okay, I kept the exercise very simple. Express, npm I express, and you should install only in that folder where there is package.json, please. Okay, now let me go and change this to KMIT and see. Let me open the exercise up. Give me 1 minute. Everybody please install Thunder client as well. And the next thing is I'm going to show you how to work with Thunder client. Remember to restart the server whenever you make the change. You can either do npm start like I told you in start script, or you can do node space index.js. You can do that as well, please. Don't worry if you are not able to figure out the start part. Okay, here I go. Day 15, refresh. Again, everybody, you can simply say node space index.js, or you could go and write the start script. Start and say node index.js. Can one of you please confirm if you are able to see exercise 16, express.js -intro as exercise? Again, the exercise is for hello KMIT and not hello world. Remember, once you install express.js, after connecting to internet, you install express.js, disconnect, connect to auditorium, get the fresh IP and submit. KMIT in uppercase, please. KMIT in uppercase. Check the exclamations, double exclamations. There, done. Everybody, it is like that. Hello KMIT, 2 exclamations, KMIT in uppercase. It's a very, very simple and basic exercise. You know how it works, right? First we start with a very simple exercise, get it working. In the next time we work on, it's going to be a fun exercise, a little more complicated, not complicated, a little more, what should I say, a little more detail to it. So this is the basic route. You see, most of you are getting it. It's very simple. Again, to run the server, you do either node space index.js, or you go to the script section of your package.json, write a start script. For that start, mention node space index.js. Going forward, you can simply do npm start. For others, like some of your friends who know nodemon, you can install nodemon, say nodemon space index.js. Automatically, every time you change the code, it works fine. 10 of you have submitted fine, 18. Only 85 have logged in. Rest of you, please log out and log back in. The steps are right there. Make sure the port is 5000, please. It's a very simple one. Now, everybody, let's wrap up the session with this small thing. When you are working for a company, you will not be the one working on the complete front end and back end and everything, right? You might be just given a module that you have to focus on, meaning either a little one file in front end, or even if you are given the whole of back end, you would not know what the front end guys are building as such. You might know a little detail, but not too much. What you might have to give them are the endpoints, meaning /what is going to fetch user information, /what is going to update user information. Everybody focus. All those have submitted. So those are the endpoints that you will be given. So your team lead or architect is going to give you the endpoints and say, build the backend for it, right? So how will you test them? There has to be a way. There is no front end where the user is going to click on register and the registration form is going to appear, and the front end is something else that somebody else is working on. Parallelly, everybody will be working in a project, right? So how do you test it? Then you can use this extension called Thunder Client, or many of you use Postman, but Thunder Client is increasingly popular, increasingly becoming popular. So please use Thunder Client. You see that? What do? You install Thunder Client. I'm sure you know how to install any extension in VS Code, right? You go here, click on extensions, you know this one, type THUNDER CLIENT, right? I'm not connected to internet, but you can connect to internet, get Thunder Client. Once you install it, it's available offline also. What do? You say new request. This, and for many of you also who are not that great with building UIs, you want to start with backend first. Talk to the database, get information, display and all. How you see here? Thunder Client gives you an option of what you want to do. what is the type of API call that you want to make? Get, post, put, what? So I say get, and it tells me what is your endpoint, what is your backend, how is the front end going to access backend, right? I'll say localhost 5000. This is my first endpoint. For today, we have learned only one point, right? The root route. So I say 5000, say send. You see that? Status OK, hello KMIT. Everybody clear? Thunder client is what should be used when you are working on the backend. Don't worry about the front end. Let the front end folks create, or you only create front end later. If you want to work on the backend and check. This is one interesting way. So you make sure the route is working fine. Then you take this route and call a fetch or Axios in your front end, right? So it gives you the status, it gives you the response. Now you must be thinking, but in registration we send information. How does that work? That is post. You pick post here and look at this carefully. In the body section, in the JSON, either you mention it here or in the form section, you can give key value pairs. If your registration has 4 fields, you can add those 4 fields here and say send. It will get the response back from the server. Yeah? We'll look at it in the next session, but this is all for today. Okay, now let me check to see how many got it working. 93, 174 have logged in. I need a few more to log in actually. Let's see. Anybody has any questions or anything that isn't working, you can come down here. Rest of you can leave, please. Rest of you can leave. If you have any questions with any of the assignments, last week's assignment or today's assignment, come over. Yeah, please.